Michael never expected that a simple drive home would change his world again. It had been 6 months since the divorce. 6 months of trying to rebuild a life he thought would last forever. He had forced himself to move on, kept himself busy with work, joined a gym, tried new hobbies, and told everyone he was fine. But deep down, he still carried the weight of unanswered questions, silent regrets, and the heavy ache of a love that slipped through his hands. One warm evening, just as the sun painted the sky orange, Michael was driving through the quiet town center. The streets were busy, people walked with shopping bags, and traffic slowly rolled forward. He wasn't paying much attention, just thinking about dinner and the long day he had. Then he saw her dot at first. He blinked, unsure if his mind was playing tricks. But no, it was her, Alina, his ex-wife, the woman he once promised forever. She stood on the sidewalk near the bakery, facing the road, but what made Michael slam on the brakes? What froze his breath was the shape of her stomach. She was pregnant, very pregnant. His hands shook around the steering wheel. His heart thundered in his chest. For a moment, the sounds of the world around him faded. It felt like everything had stopped. Alina looked almost the same, calm eyes, soft smile, but now her hands rested gently on a round belly that clearly looked months along. Michael couldn't breathe. His mind raced. This isn't possible. How? When? With who? And why didn't she tell me? He had only heard one thing during their divorce. The one thing that shattered him most. She told him she wasn't ready for a child, and didn't want one. He had respected her decision, even though it tore him apart. Now here she was, visibly expecting. He slowly rolled his window down, unsure what to say. But before he could speak, Alina looked up. Their eyes met. Shock flickered across her face. Then something else, fear. Or maybe guilt. She took a tiny step back, tightening her grip on her belly. Michael swallowed hard. Her lips parted, but no words came out. In that one silent moment, a storm of emotions passed between them, confusion, pain, memories, and something that felt like unfinished truth. Finally, she whispered, "Michael, I didn't expect to see you." He cleared his throat, fighting to stay calm. You're pregnant." She looked down at her stomach as if seeing it for the first time. "Yes." His voice cracked. "But you said you weren't keeping the baby." A silence heavier than any he had felt before settled between them. Alina looked toward the traffic, then back at him. Her eyes glistened, not with joy, but something deeper. "Harder. I never said that," she whispered. Michael froze. She continued, voice trembling, "There are things you don't know." His pulse quickened. "Then tell me." But she didn't. Instead, she took another step back, retreating like someone afraid to reopen old wounds. "I can't talk here," she said softly. This is complicated." Michael's frustration rose, but so did something else, fear. "What do you mean?" "Alina, whose baby is that? Please, just tell me the truth." Her eyes filled with emotion, regret, sadness, maybe even love, but she broke the gaze. "I have to go," she whispered. "I'll call you tonight." Before he could protest, she turned away and slowly walked down the busy sidewalk. Disappearing into the crowd, Michael sat frozen in his car, staring at the empty spot where she had stood only seconds ago. His world felt upside down. *N. A child. Her child. A child she said she didn't want. Nothing made sense. But one thing was clear. The truth wasn't what he believed, and tonight, he was finally going to hear it. Or so he thought. Michael spent the entire evening pacing around his apartment. His mind couldn't settle, not even for a minute. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Alina standing there pregnant, nervous, hiding something. He checked his phone again. Still nothing. Why hasn't she called? He whispered to himself. He tried watching TV. Nothing helped. He kept replaying their divorce in his head, the long arguments, the painful silences, the misunderstandings that grew into walls. But through everything, he remembered the one thing that hurt most, when she told him she didn't want the baby. He had tried to be supportive. He had tried to listen. But inside, he felt like losing something before it even began. Now everything was different. Now she was expecting, months along. And he had no idea who the father was, or if the baby was even after the divorce. Around 10:47 p.m., just as he was about to put the phone down, it finally buzzed. Alina. His throat tightened. He hesitated a second before answering. "Hello," he said quietly. There was a soft breath from the other end. "Michael?" "Hi." He could hear she'd been crying. "Alina, please," he said gently. "I need to understand. What's going on? Why didn't you tell me?" For a few long seconds, Alina didn't speak. Michael heard only her breathing and what sounded like cars passing by in the background. "Didn't call until now because I wasn't sure if I should," she said finally. "I didn't want to open old wounds." He walked to the window, staring out at the empty street below. "Seeing you today opened everything anyway." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm sorry you had to find out like that." Michael tried to stay calm. "Alina, whose baby is it?" Another long silence. A silence deep enough to hear the fear inside it. "It's mine," she said softly. Michael closed his eyes. "That's not what I asked." He heard her sniff, trying to hold herself together. "It's yours, Michael." The words hit him like cold water. He wasn't expecting that. Not after everything. Not after the divorce. His voice shook. "Mine. Are you sure?" "Yes, I've known for months." He sat down on the couch, breathing hard. "But you said you didn't want the baby? You said you couldn't continue with the pregnancy. So, what happened? Why didn't you just tell me?" Her voice cracked, full of guilt. "Because I was scared. I didn't know how to talk to you. Everything was falling apart between us. We were arguing all the time. We couldn't agree on anything." Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But how do you hide something like this? How could you walk away from the marriage, knowing you were pregnant?" "Because I thought it was the right thing," she said, voice trembling. "You were so hurt, and I didn't want to make things worse." "That doesn't make sense, Alina." "I know it doesn't," she said softly. "But I wasn't thinking clearly. I was overwhelmed, and you were angry, and everything felt like it was breaking." He remembered those days well, the tension, the shouting, the tears, but he also remembered the moment she told him she wasn't ready for a child, and the cold silence that followed. He whispered, "Why didn't you tell me about the baby before the divorce was final?" "Because I thought you'd force me to stay," she admitted quietly. "And I didn't want you to resent me or the baby. I didn't want our child to grow up feeling unwanted." Michael's heart clenched. "I would never do that. I wanted this baby. I wanted a family with you." There was a shaky breath from her side. "I know that now. I was wrong. I should have told you. I should have trusted you." The honesty in her voice made Michael's anger soften, but the pain remained. "Alina, why today? Why did I have to find out by accident?" "Because I didn't plan to tell you," she said. "I thought maybe I'd raise the baby alone. I thought maybe that's what you would want after everything." Michael felt tears sting his eyes. "No, Alina. That's not what I want. Not at all." For the first time, she didn't respond immediately. Then she whispered, "There's more you need to know." Michael felt his chest tighten. "What more?" "I can't say it on the phone," she said. "Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere quiet?" He hesitated, but he knew he couldn't walk away now, not from the truth, not from the baby. "Yes," he said. "Tell me where." She gave him a small park on the edge of town, a place they used to go when they first started dating, a place filled with old memories and new fear. "Michael," she said softly before hanging up, "please come with an open heart." He hung up and stared at the silent phone. A child. His child, and secrets he still didn't know. Tomorrow would change everything. The next morning came slower than any Michael had ever lived. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Elena's face. The fear in her voice. The weight behind her words. "There's more you need to know." Those words played in his mind again and again. By the time he reached the small park on the edge of town, his stomach felt tight. This place once felt warm, dates, long walks, soft laughter, but today, it felt like a quiet room waiting for a storm. He saw her sitting on a wooden bench near the pond. She looked tired, as if the weight she carried wasn't just her pregnancy. Her hands rested on her belly, and her eyes followed the ducks gliding across the water. When she looked up and saw him, her breath caught. Hi, he said softly. Michael walked over and sat on the opposite end of the bench, giving her space but watching her carefully. She looked different, older somehow, or maybe just more fragile. For a long moment, neither spoke. Asterisk. Finally, Alina took a slow breath. Before I say anything, I need you to know I never stopped caring about you. Even after the divorce, Michael felt something tug at his heart, but he stayed quiet, letting her continue. She lowered her gaze. The day I found out I was pregnant, everything between us was falling apart. We were fighting every day. I was scared. I didn't know what kind of future we had. Michael nodded slowly. I remember, but I wish you had still told me. I know, she whispered. But when I first told you I wasn't ready, I didn't know how to face your disappointment. He looked at her gently. Alina, I wasn't disappointed in you. I was scared too, but I wanted us to face it together. Alina wiped her eyes. I wasn't strong enough then, and then things got even worse. She shifted slightly, holding her belly protectively. When I went to my appointment, the doctor told me something I wasn't prepared for. Michael's heart skipped. What? She looked directly into his eyes now. Her voice was steady but full of pain. They said the baby might not make it. Michael's breath froze. They found complications early on, she said. The doctor explained everything. The risks, the possible outcomes. I was terrified. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to put you through that uncertainty. She swallowed hard. I thought maybe it would be easier if you didn't know. If something happened, you wouldn't carry that pain. Michael shook his head slowly, tears forming. Alina, you shouldn't have faced that alone. I know, she whispered. But I didn't want you to feel trapped. I didn't want you to think I was holding you in the marriage with something that wasn't guaranteed. He clenched his hands together. So you pulled away? Yes, she nodded painfully. I pushed you away. I made you think I didn't want the baby. I let you believe the worst, because I didn't want to hurt you more if things ended badly. A tear slipped down her cheek. But the doctors were wrong, she said softly. Or, maybe lucky. Or maybe this baby is stronger than everyone thought. But the pregnancy improved. The risks lowered. The baby started growing healthy. Michael felt a wave of emotion hit him. Relief, sadness, anger, confusion. And you still didn't tell me? He whispered. Alina closed her eyes as if bracing for impact. I was ashamed. I had already lied. I had already let you go. I didn't know how to suddenly come back into your life with something this big. She placed a hand on her stomach, and by then, you seemed happier. You looked like you were rebuilding your life. I didn't want to ruin that. Michael shook his head. Alina, you weren't ruining anything. You were hiding something I deserved to know. I know. Her voice cracked. And that's why I'm telling you now. Because yesterday, seeing you, I realized the truth was hurting both of us. He leaned back, trying to breathe through the storm inside him. Alina, I don't know what to feel right now. I'm angry that you hid it. I'm sad that you suffered alone. But I'm also grateful the baby is okay. Her eyes softened. I understand all of that. He looked at her gently. Is there more you haven't told me? She hesitated, then nodded. Michael's chest tightened. More? Alina placed both hands on her stomach and whispered, yes, and this part is the hardest. Michael felt the air shift around them. What is it, Alina? He asked quietly. She looked into his eyes with a trembling whisper. It's about why the doctors thought the baby had complications in the first place. Michael stared at her, heart pounding. And it's something I should have told you years ago. A child. Maybe even impossible. She paused, steadying her breath. They said, even if I did get pregnant someday, the risks would be high. There could be early complications, or I might not be able to continue the pregnancy. Michael's chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me this before? She wiped her cheek. Because I didn't want you to choose me out of pity. I didn't want to start our life together with fear. Fear of what? He asked gently. Fear that you would want children someday, and I wouldn't be able to give you that. Michael felt something crumble inside him, not anger, but sorrow for how much she had carried alone. Alina, he said softly, you never had to hide that from me. But I did hide it, she whispered. And when we started trying for a baby early in our marriage, and nothing happened for months, I panicked. I felt like I was failing you, like I wasn't enough. His eyes softened. You were always enough. She shook her head. I didn't feel that way. Every negative test felt like a reminder of what my doctor told me years ago. And when I finally got pregnant, and the early scans looked risky, it felt like I was proving them right. Michael swallowed hard. So you told me you didn't want the baby, when really, you were scared you'd lose it. Alina nodded slowly. Yes, I didn't want you to get attached, and then be crushed if something happened. I didn't want to watch you break the way I knew I would. She took a slow breath. And when our arguments got worse, when we weren't communicating, when everything felt fragile, I convinced myself that leaving was better than dragging you through uncertainty. Michael looked down, trying to steady himself. So you let me believe you didn't want the baby. You let the marriage end, to protect me. Her voice shook. To protect both of us. I thought if the pregnancy failed, at least you wouldn't know. You wouldn't carry that grief. Michael let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, but the pregnancy didn't fail. No, she said. Day by day, the baby grew stronger. The risks lowered, and I started feeling the little kicks, like reminders that this child was meant to be. She gently stroked her stomach, a tender, fragile smile touching her lips. But by then, I had already built a wall between us. I didn't know how to come back. I didn't know how to tell you I had lied, or that I had been scared all along. Michael rested his elbows on his knees and looked at her with a blend of pain and compassion. Alina, he said quietly, I wish you had told me everything from the beginning. We could have faced this together. She looked at him with eyes full of regret. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He reached out instinctively, but stopped halfway, unsure. What do you want now? He asked honestly. Do you want me involved? Do you want help? Do you want us to talk about whatever comes next? Her lips trembled as she whispered, I didn't ask you to meet so you'd feel forced to do anything. Then why? He asked gently. She took a deep breath, eyes glistening. Because the baby deserves to know the truth, she said softly. And you deserve to know too. Michael nodded, his throat tight. And there's one more thing, she added. He froze. Another thing. She nodded slowly. This isn't only about the baby. It's about us. Michael's heart pounded. What do you mean? He asked carefully. She looked at him with eyes full of hope and fear. I want to tell you what I really felt during the divorce. But I didn't have the courage. Michael's breath caught. What did you feel? He whispered. Alina closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were shimmering with tears. I never stopped loving you, Michael. Not for a single day. His heart trembled. And I think, she whispered, a part of me was hoping that you hadn't stopped loving me either. Michael felt those words hit him harder than anything else that morning. I never stopped loving you. They echoed through him, pulling up every memory, every moment, every quiet wish he had pushed to the side for the last 6 months. He looked at her, unsure how to respond. Emotions tangled inside him, love, hurt, anger, sadness, hope. All of it felt too heavy and too fragile at the same time. He finally said softly, I never stopped loving you, either. But everything that happened, it broke something in me, and I don't know how to fix it. She nodded slowly, tears threatening to fall. I understand. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not asking you to come back. I just needed you to know the truth, the whole truth. For a moment, neither spoke. The breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the faint sound of children laughing at the far end of the park. The world felt painfully normal for a moment, even though their lives were shifting beneath them. Michael finally turned toward her. "Can I feel the baby?" She looked surprised, pleasantly so. Then she nodded. He reached out slowly, gently placing his hand on her belly. It felt warm, soft, and more real than anything he'd felt in months, and then it happened. A small kick, Michael's breath caught. For a moment, his eyes closed as if trying to hold the feeling in place. "That's our baby," he whispered, voice trembling. Alina watched him with eyes full of emotion. "Yes, that's our baby." He kept his hand there for a moment longer, letting the realization sink in. He wasn't on the outside anymore. He wasn't disconnected or distant. This was his child. His responsibility. His heart. When he pulled his hand away, he took a deep breath. "Alina," he said gently, "I need time. I won't lie about that. I need time to understand all this. To heal from everything." She nodded. "I expected that. But," he continued, "I want to be part of the baby's life. No matter what. I don't ever want this child to feel like they weren't wanted." Her eyes softened. "I never doubted that about you." He stared at the calm water in front of them. "And about us. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were. I don't know if we should." She looked down. "I know. I've made mistakes, big ones, and I don't expect you to forget any of it." He looked at her gently. "But I don't think this is the end of our story. Not yet." A small, hopeful smile touched her lips. "I'd like to believe that." He sighed softly. "I'm not promising anything except honesty. From now on, whatever happens, we talk, no hiding, no fear, no assumptions." She wiped her tears and nodded. "I want that too." They sat quietly for a long moment, watching the sunlight reflect off the pond. Then Alina spoke again. "There's something else I wanted to tell you." Michael raised an eyebrow, half afraid of another twist. "What now?" She smiled softly, this time with warmth instead of pain. "Yesterday, when you saw me on the street, you looked shocked, but you also looked concerned. Not angry, not hateful. Concerned," he exhaled slowly, "because I still care. You're the mother of my child, and you were my wife. And maybe," she said gently, "we don't have to define each other by the mistakes we made." Michael's eyes softened. "Maybe not." She took a deep breath. "I want you in our baby's life, Michael, and if it ever feels right, I still want you in mine too. Not because I want to rewrite the past, but because I believe people can grow, and I've grown. I'm stronger, and I want to be better for the baby. And for myself." He looked at her long and hard, seeing not the woman who left him, but the woman who was truly trying to rebuild something honest. "Alina," he said quietly, "I don't know where we'll end up, but I'm willing to walk forward, one step at a time." She smiled through her tears. "That's all I hoped for." Michael stood first and offered his hand to help her up. She took it, slowly rising to her feet. They stood close, not as a married couple, not as strangers, but as two people finally ready to face truth instead of fear. He placed one more gentle hand on her belly. "I'm here," he whispered. "For you, and for our child." Alina covered his hand with hers. "And I'm here too." They didn't kiss. They didn't make promises. They didn't rush into a perfect ending. Instead, they walked side by side out of the park, leaving behind their old fears and stepping into something new. Not a perfect future, but an honest one, and for them, that was enough.